What's up, Dosa Dion? What's up, Rad? Hey, my name is Michael Banks. Please vote for me every day at FordHallOfFans.com. Boot up.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're here to take a look at some NFL draft prospects, and today we're doing an overview of the receiver position for the 2022 Senior Bowl. So let's get it started.
The city's been down, and it found a way to get up. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. We're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here, and we're back to talk about some NFL draft prospects. I love the Senior Bowl, and this year the Lions are once again involved in the Senior Bowl. They're going to be coaching one side. The Jets are going to be coaching the other side. We have the rosters for each team, and I was trying to think of a way we could get a nice little overview on who's going to be in this year's Senior Bowl. That way, when we're watching, we may have a little bit of a background on each player that's in it. And then, of course, afterwards, it'll affect their draft stock big time, especially for the small school players that didn't play some top-tier competition. To see them go against some of the top prospects in the country, it's going to adjust. It's going to adjust where they're at. Plus, having the 2 teams involved, the Jets and the Lions, that's pretty important too, because like Brad Holmes said, last time they were involved in it, which was back with the LA Rams, they drafted some players from the Senior Bowl. Trying to think of a way that we could get a nice little overview of each player, because we have about a week before the game, depending on when you're watching this. For me, I was trying to think of how we could do this, because there's a lot of players that are involved, and doing a full breakdown of each player just is not realistic. It's not going to happen before this starts. Of course, we'll do that throughout the offseason, so we'll get to a lot of these players throughout the offseason up until the draft. But before the Senior Bowl, because I've seen a lot of these players for a lot of these positions, and if I haven't, I'm taking notes on them. I thought we'd get a nice little background of each player involved in each positional group and go that way. So if you guys enjoy this, let me know. Let me know you guys enjoy this. Show support however you can. If not, it's okay. We won't do this. We won't do this format or setup anymore. But I thought it'd be kind of a cool idea. So today, I wanted to take a look at the receiver position. Okay, so obviously the Lions have half the receivers. The Jets have the other half. And I do think it's still important for both sides. You know, I think you could definitely draft someone that was on the Jets team that practiced with their staff. I mean, you're seeing the same players all week anyway, but maybe there's a little bit extra there if you were coached by the Lions. But I still think it's important either way that you're just in the Senior Bowl and the Lions get a hands-on work and they get to see you up close. So I'm super excited for this year's Senior Bowl. I love the game. I love the one-on-ones. There's certain guys that I'm really looking forward to see, because like, dang, I want to see them against this top competition, or wow, I want to see them in one-on-ones, because I really didn't get to see them based on their role back in college. So there's a lot here. I'm pumped for this, especially at like the quarterback position, because we could be looking at, in a lot of people's eyes, not saying me, but a lot of people, the top 6 quarterbacks in this year's draft are all in the Senior Bowl. It's crazy. That doesn't normally happen. So this is pretty awesome. I will pretty much guarantee the Lions will draft at least 1 receiver. Could easily see them doubling up. It also depends on what they do in free agency. Having Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, both becoming free agents. Tom Kennedy, I think he's an exclusive rights free agent though. But yeah, I mean, this is a need for the Lions. They're going to very likely address this. Tyrell Williams no longer here. Brashad Perriman no longer here. So this is a spot the Lions will address, and they could double up at this position. So I think this is a very important spot to look at, so I thought we'd start with it. Let's go through the receivers. We have about, I don't know, 10, 12, 14 players that we're going to go through here. Again, it's not a full in-depth breakdown on each player. That will continue to happen throughout this offseason, and we'll learn more from this. But I just want to give that background knowledge of each guy in the Senior Bowl. These are in no particular order. We're just kind of going to go through them. Let's start off with the Jets first. Let's go to a receiver that could potentially end up being the top receiver taken in the draft class through the Senior Bowl. And this is receiver Jahon Dotson from the Big Ten, Penn State, 5'11", 184 pounds. Doesn't have like those traits that get people extremely excited. I wouldn't say he's the fastest receiver, even though he has good speed. He's got a track background. To me, he's not the fastest receiver in this class. He's also not a big body receiver, tying that with speed that gets everybody excited. All right. He doesn't have some of those things that maybe make him stick out amongst others, but he's just really good at what he's good at. And he does bring a lot to the table. For Penn State, I call him Mr. Production. The guy had 91 receptions, nearly 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns. I mean, any game that he played in, he was going to get a lot of production. He has a little bit of versatility in alignment offensively where you can put him in a slot on the outside. And what he does well, he does at an elite level. First off, pass catching. He's an extremely reliable pass catcher, really doesn't drop passes that often. He can take a hit over the middle, deep passes, just does not drop balls. I mean, he'll come back, work his way to the football, body catches, catching with his hands. Doesn't drop a lot of passes that touch his hands. You touch it, you catch it. He really embodies that. Also, as a route runner, I love him as a route runner. I really do. And this is what sticks out. Little nuances as a route runner. It's the change of pace as a route runner to set up his routes. It's understanding of zone coverage, how to make himself a threat for the quarterback, to detach himself from coverage, find the hole, work himself open. I mean, I really like him as a route runner. His ability to get space. It's like when you needed something for Penn State, when Penn State needed a few yards and they were going to pass the ball, it was going to Jahon Dotson. I mean, you just knew it was coming. Those things at such a high level that it would be really hard to bet that he's going to be unimpactful at the next level. However, he does have some limitations. And the first one, of course, is size, being that he's only 5'9", and that shows up in multiple areas. Length, that shows up as a catch radius. Yeah, there's a lack of size here. So catch radius definitely shows off. You put a ball too far away from him, he may not be able to reach the football. Again, I don't think he has I don't think he's a fast receiver in this class, but he does have good speed. There's no question. He could threaten you to take off the top. Height, of course, that's something as well. He can be a little bit tougher to see. Got a little bit of elusiveness, and that can help him in some of the small situations, you know, picking up an extra couple of yards after a grab, something like that. But I don't see him as like one of the guys that got to break a ton of tackles, right? That doesn't immediately come to mind as a guy that's going to make a lot of guys, you know, break a lot of tackles, things like that. But with his speed, tied with a little bit of elusiveness, yeah, he's a threat after the catch. It's just not something that immediately comes to mind when I think of Jahon Dotson. Also, as a blocker, he's tough. Like, he's a tough receiver. As a blocker, he's a tough blocker. And, hey, don't ever underestimate a guy's ability to block just because of his side at the receiver position. Really, I feel like for receivers, it just comes down to effort. Pretty much as simple as that. Are you going to show effort as a receiver to block? Okay, then you can block. Just look at a guy like Khalif Raymond or Amon-Ra St. Brown, or heck, even a guy like Cooper Kupp. Also, in contested situations, he's tough there as well. I mean, he's 5 or 12 in contested situations. You don't throw him into those a lot. A lot of times you can also get open, but he will compete in battle, and he's just going to fight for the football. I feel like he's a quarterback's best friend, and he's going to be a production guy at the next level. There's some possible limitations in his game, but in reality, he does a lot of things really well. Jahon Dotson, I'm sure you know about him. You're probably a Michigan or Michigan State fan or an Ohio State fan. There's a good chance you're one of those 3 teams fans. Maybe not, but because you've probably seen Jahon Dotson play, and you kind of know what he's about. So that's Jahon Dotson. Could end up being the top receiver pick in this draft. We'll see. Do I see him as a fit for us? I mean, look, Jahon Dotson's a good player. So, yeah, I do like guys with a little bit more size, and that scare me a little bit more after the catch. So I wouldn't put him as like an ideal fit for us, but he's definitely a good player, and we'll see. He may go out there and dominate some of those one-on-ones. Let's continue down. Let's go to our next guy. I'm sure I'm going to mess up this name. Again, I apologize if I mess up someone's name. This is Khalil Shakir. I think I'm saying that right. Just by how it's spelled, I'm thinking that's right. A 6', 190-pound receiver out of Boise State. Another guy with a lot of good production. 77 receptions, 1,117 yards, 7 touchdowns. What I like about Khalil Shakir is that, kind of like Jahon Dotson, I do see similarities in the way I could describe them as, I would almost call him a security blanket. Like, kind of a quarterback's best friend, but a security blanket. A lot of his route running, you see a lot of drags underneath routes for Shakir, but he's also extremely versatile. Like, you could put that gadget, you know, label to him, and there's nothing wrong with that because they literally put him everywhere. He gave me some Amon-Ra St. Brown vibes. I could throw you at Zeke. I could put you in the backfield. I can line you up and hand the ball off. They handed him the ball. I mean, you look at his statistic, 21 carries for 130 yards this past year. Yeah, the numbers aren't very good, but that just shows how much he ran the ball. Like, they'll get him involved everywhere. 21 kick returns for an average of 28.5 yards per return, and a punt return, 9 punt returns for 128 yards. It's a very reliable type of option that you would have on some of those underneath routes. Now, 6 foot, 190. It's not bad size. It's a little bit on the slimmer side. You can definitely tell that by watching him. I also love his route running control, is how I would call it. His ability to kind of break down, zone coverage, sit down, find himself in open area. He's got a nice little change of direction, a little bit of shiftiness to his game, a little bit of that shiftiness, a little bit of that joystick to his game, and of course they get him the ball any way they can. He doesn't have elite speed either. I would say Jahon Dotson probably has better speed than he does. Very comfortable with the ball in his hands. I would also say I'm very excited to see him in one-on-ones. He can round some of his routes, especially at the top of his routes coming in and out of breaks. So I'm very excited to see him in one-on-ones, trying to work some of those outside routes. You know, Khalil's really lined up everywhere, and we've seen him play the X and things like that. And I think he could have that versatility at next level. He best best projects consistently as a slot receiver for a lot of people at the next level. The ability to play free off the line of scrimmage, sit in a lot of those drag routes, attack the middle of the field because he's shown the willingness to do so. I think he can play in a lot of spots for you. I think likely the most snaps will probably come from slot. Mix it up though. Let's get some size in here. We're talking some shorter receivers. Not short, but let's get some size. Let's go to Alec Pierce, a 6'3", 213-pound, bigger body receiver out of Cincinnati. All right. Now, hey, Desmond Ridder gets the attention in Cincinnati for that offense, but Alec Pierce deserves some of that. He doesn't have the production the last two guys do. And the games that he played this past season, 52 receptions, 884 yards, 5 touchdowns. He also does have experience in special teams, specifically in coverage. That's his background throughout his years with Cincinnati. So immediately you want to look for a role. You got to help us on special teams, right? He's going to be able to play a role in special teams coverage. First thing, and I know this is blocking. You're like, wait, we're talking about receivers. Why are we talking about blocking? But the first thing that stuck out to me is he looks for work as a blocker. You know, receivers can be competitive when they get engaged, but he looks to block somebody. He looks for someone to pick up and block. And that immediately stuck out to me because I absolutely love that. After seeing the ways our receivers block this year, it's just kind of an automatic thing that I look for when I'm watching receivers. He's also got pretty good top end speed. 6'3" with good speed. It's always that combo that goes together that gets people excited, and he's got that. Also seemed like he did get a lot of production, specifically from the slot position, lining up on the inside. He could be a mismatch there with some of his speed. That's what Anthony Lynn did with Tyrell Williams. I thought that could be kind of his role. So Alec Pierce kind of gives me some of those vibes. But don't mistake this for like some kind of really straight up tall, stiff guy that can't move, because he can move a little bit. He also has an ability to sink his hips in and out of cuts, which is one of the areas where I'm excited to see him in the Senior Bowl, to see him add more. I want to see some work on the outside. I know that he can play the X receiver position. You watch his release. He's strong in the upper body, and he's got really shifty feet, which surprised you for a guy that's 6'3" off the release. I don't think he'll have any issue getting off the press, but we'll see. However, it's really the route running on the outside where I want to see how much he can handle in that. The crisp, out-breaking routes, things like that. There's a lot of guys like that for me in this year's draft. Also a really nice target in the red zone. Like, it shows up. You know, there's always that, well, he's tall, so he's going to be good in the red zone. He's very good in the red zone. He's great at high pointing passes as well. Or if he's going to outsize you, he times those up really well. His ball tracking ability is well. But again, that's really what I'm looking for. I also don't think he's scary once the ball's in his hands. Now, that's what you expect out of a lot of guys that are 6'3", 213. You don't expect him to be super shifty or things like that. He does show effort. Like, he doesn't just sit down when the ball's in his hands. You'll see that he's trying to get somewhere. He doesn't bring a lot to the table after the catch to me that sticks out to me. He's also not always on the field, which is something to keep an eye on. Like I said, I saw a lot of production for him from the slot, so I really want to see, can he take on an outside role consistently at the next level. Next receiver that I have is Romeo Doubs. Now, I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name, okay, instead of like Dobbs. I think it's Dobbs, and the reason I say that is because I heard some people say it when I was watching some Romeo clips. So I was like, okay, I think that's how you say his name. A 6'2", 200-pound receiver. He's been gaining some steam, I think, for a lot of people. When you bring up Romeo, a lot of people bring up his potential and what he could be, and you know, some of the athleticism that he has and what he could become at the next level, and that gets people excited. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, out of Nevada. He had a really nice statistical season this past year. 80 receptions, 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns. What I like is he also brings a punt returning aspect, which is awesome. All right, 12 returns, 170 yards, which is 14.2 yards per punt return. And keep in mind, for guys like Khalif, that was our guy. So if you didn't have Khalif next year, someone's got to be your punt returner. So anybody that can bring kind of special teams impact, I immediately look for that. Dobbs, he played with Carson Strong, and Carson Strong does make a lot of his money over the middle of the field. I like Carson Strong a lot. We'll probably have a video on him at some point. I don't know. We'll see where my quarterback rankings go. I mean, right now, it's probably Sam Howell that's pushing the top. But Carson Strong, he's also in that conversation, you know? So I'm going to have to continue to watch him. And he did a lot of work over the middle for Carson Strong. So you saw him line up a lot of times to attack the middle of the field, which just made sense. And that's where Strong had a lot of success. He also had a big tight end that had some success over the middle of the field. So you just saw a ton of production for him in the inside. He's not always been the fastest guy. It's not like he came out of high school and he was like, dang, he's going to run a 4.3 40. He's going to, you know, blow by everybody. It wasn't like that. He didn't come that fast out of high school. Of course, he's had to work on it. But what sticks out is the acceleration, the burst. Someone called him a cheetah. I think one of his teammates calls him a cheetah. And you can see it is that catching screens, he's immediately a threat right away because he can go from 0 to 100. That's what I noticed with Romeo. With that being said, I think he did leave a little bit to be desired as a run after catch type of player. I know with that ability, the acceleration, the explosiveness that he has, also having a punt return background, this guy could be a problem with the balls in his hands. I don't deny that at all. Some of that's also the role you're playing offensively, but that's what stuck out to me is once the ball gets in his hands, he's fast. He's fast quick. Maybe not the highest top end, but he can get there in a hurry. There are some concerns, and some of these have come from past years that have carried over to this year. And I would say this year he has improved, which makes you excited about this. But pass catching has been one of his biggest concerns. And it's not like it's been completely awful, but it has been a concern. And that's the first job as a receiver, catch the ball. You can be fast, you can be all this, but if you can't catch the ball, I can't get you as a receiver because at that point you're not a receiver, you're a dropper. For him, that's not the case. He can catch the ball, and he improved upon that. You still see some things that can concern you with the technique, some of the ways that he catches the football, his hands. You'll see him double catch some passes that he shouldn't be double catching. An out route, he shouldn't be struggling with that. You'll see some of the passes over the middle where he'll catch it and fall down because he didn't get the ball cleanly. So technically, he probably could use some work as a pass catcher. I think for him, getting on the jugs for an NFL team and just putting in work after practice like St. Brown did, those guys, just put in work. You know, get consistent with your hands would be the most important thing, especially when he's catching in traffic. You can see some drops there. As a pass catcher, especially attacking the middle of the field, you see him allow a lot of passes to get to his body, and that can allow defenders to get at the football. And I think sometimes that can limit what he can do after the catch a little bit because the ball gets there so late. I like his upside as a route runner, specifically the change of pace, like a basketball player. You have to, run a little slow and then speed up. You can't be running at the same speed. And you saw that he could play high, look a little high throughout the play, and then you could see in and out of breaks his ability to sink. And it's just that explosiveness. It's that quick step, that acceleration that gives him that separation that can just throw defenders off out of one cut. And that can give him some space. And his upper body, he's physical enough. He's got the size that really contact on routes is probably not going to slow him down. He could be a little more crisp with a route runner. There is still more to his route tree I would like to see. You saw a lot of deep out routes that he was able to run. He would attack the middle of the field when lined up there, and you could see him go over the top. He definitely has the speed to do that. And I think he has the ability to throttle down. But I would like to see a little bit more from his route tree, so that'll be something we get to see as well. His blocking didn't really stick out to me. Again, I know it's a little thing, but I didn't see him like searching for someone to block. It seemed like sometimes he's kind of just walking around. And that moves us to our next receiver, which is a guy that I'm super pumped for. This could end up being the highest riser possibly throughout this Senior Bowl for a receiver. Reason being, small school. If he can go light it up in the Senior Bowl, he could end up flying up draft boards. Like, I don't think there's a limit as to how far he could actually end up flying up draft boards. We talk about Romeo potentially with a great Senior Bowl. If he shows good hands, making plays after the catch, happen on the outside, you may be like, dang, he could end up being a first-round pick. I think that's the same thing with Christian Watson. I don't want him to be overlooked. I think a lot of people right now have him mid-rounds, possibly early day 3. He's 6'5", 208 out of North Dakota State. Last season, he played 11 games where he had 43 receptions for 800 yards, 7 touchdowns. Being 6'5", 208, he can be very scary once the ball is in his hands. Now, it's going to be important to see that in the Senior Bowl, not against the competition that he played against at North Dakota State. But he is tough after the ball's in his hands. He has some elusiveness to his game. He's tough to tackle because he's a big body. He makes plays that's very impressive for a guy at his size. He's also versatile. I'm going to talk about the speed to size combo. The size is there, making things happen after the catch, and then he's fast. I mean, he could be pushing a 4.40 times. So he's one of the most exciting players that I want to see in this year's Senior Bowl because I can see him as a tremendous riser, guy that could fill out, because he's got size, I like the size, and a guy that could fill out kind of that Z role for this Lions offense, but also give you versatility to play the X receiver position. And to really put this all in perspective is that he's a kick returner. He's 6'5", right? Okay, 6'5", this tall, not this tall, but 6'5", and he's a kick returner. This is a guy that I'm super pumped to see, just to see how he does against some of this competition. All right, let's continue. We got a couple left with this just sides, okay? Next up, we have a receiver from Rutgers, another Big Ten receiver here. We have Bamba Melton, a 5'11", 195-pound receiver out of Rutgers. With Bamba Melton, look, he had 55 receptions for 618 yards, and again, this was only in 10 games played, so keep that in mind, and 3 touchdowns, but he also did show a little bit of work as a runner. He had 9 carries for 51 yards. This is an exciting opportunity for a Rutgers receiver because if he was drafted this year anywhere, it'd be only the 8th receiver drafted in Rutgers history. So it's cool that you could be possibly a part of that history. What I like about Bamba Melton is his work on screens. Screens are extremely important. I mean, especially a team like the Lions. We run a ton of screens. Smoke screens, bubble screens, any kind of screen that you throw his way, he can be dangerous with the balls in his hands because he can break some tackles. Or from Bamba Melton, a lot of his production did come from the slot receiver position. Now, when they would slide him to the outside, you had to be on high alert because usually they were trying to take a shot, whether that was a deep post, just a vertical route down the outside. He did have a nice little nuance to his vertical route running. Contest situations weren't his best, but he's usually looking for somehow he could get over the top. You do question his ability from the outside, his route running from the outside consistently to play a role like that. He is a pretty physical runner and kind of tough to bring down. But there's a lot that he's going to have an opportunity to prove or not to prove in this Senior Bowl. When he was on the outside, it was a deep shot. When he was on the inside, that's where you saw a lot of his consistent production, specifically some of his route nuance. He definitely sells things coming in out of break, especially on over-the-top routes, head fakes, set up some double moves. Him in contest situations hasn't been extremely successful. Definitely a threat once the ball is in his hand, especially on quick hitters, specifically screens. Next up, we have Braylon Sanders. To wrap it up for the receivers on the Jet side, we have Braylon Sanders, a 6-foot, 190-pound receiver out of Ole Miss. Now, the Ole Miss offense, it frustrates the heck out of me. Since he's in the offense, he's got to play a certain way. He's got to catch a lot of slants. I mean, you see a ton of slants when you watch him. He's got to be able to work the middle of the field. I have a lot to prove because I think there's another receiver on the Lions side that may be above him from this Ole Miss team, and with a lot of slants that they run, I really want to see an improved route tree here. I want to see how deep he can go into his bag of a route tree and how well and how crisp he can come in and out of his breaks. I know he's a very physical route runner. It's hard to really throw him off his route, a lot of in-breaking routes. So he has to play through a lot of contact. He has pretty good speed. I'm excited to see how these guys out of Ole Miss get to work on the edge. There's another Ole Miss receiver on the Lions side that I think is probably a little bit higher up. So this is just an opportunity because he really doesn't have a lot of production. 24 receptions for 549 yards, which is a ton. I mean, that's literally 23 yards per reception. So he's making big plays every time he touches the football. And that's kind of the offense. Get it to your hands and pick up extra yards. Make plays in the middle of the field. Make guys miss. And he's been able to do that, 4 touchdowns. It just hasn't been a huge sample size. So for him, the one-on-ones are going to stick out to me big time. And how he plays within an offense that's not extremely RPO based, because if they're not going to run it like the Ole Miss offense, how can he translate to a different offense? That's going to be important in the NFL. You're not going to run RPOs every play. Some teams do it, but not every play. All right, now let's take a look at the Lions side for the receivers. Who are the Lions going to be coaching up? I like both sides. I really do. I think I knew more a little bit about the Jets side. I think they have maybe some more top-end talent guys that'll probably end up going higher. But I think there's some legitimate sleepers. And what I mean by sleepers is that guys that either you haven't heard a ton about or they haven't put the numbers out there so they can go overlooked, but they shouldn't be because the numbers don't always tell the full story. There's some guys here that I've just seen within the way that they play, the style they play with. I'm like, dang, this dude could be really talented. Now he may have his chance to shine and go to work. And if some of these dudes dominate one-on-ones, dominate the game, they're going to fly up. And that's what I see a lot with this entire group. Let's start off with a receiver named Calvin Austin III out of Memphis, 5'9", 162. I'm drawing a lot of comparisons to a guy like Tutu Atwell, who I think ended up getting hurt this year, but he's at like 140-some pounds. So he's got like 20-plus pounds on Tutu Atwell. Come in as the smallest receiver here, but the production is there. 74 receptions for 1,149 yards, 8 touchdowns. He has 1 rush that's went for 69 yards and a touchdown, and he has a punt return touchdown. Yeah, he has a punt return touchdown. It was actually one of the most heads-up plays I've seen. All right, you know how, like, hey, if the punting team downs it, right, they leave it there. The offense can pick it up and take off, and there's no consequences. Well, they left the ball there, and he came around, picked it up, and took it off to the house. It was one of the most heads-up plays that I've seen. What's cool about Calvin Austin III is that you kind of initially look at him, you look at what he does, and you're thinking of a guy like Tutu Atwell, fast, little receiver, he's limited, he can't play on the outside, things like that. I just don't think that's the case, and I think he's proven that with Memphis, and he's going to have a chance to prove it again here in the Senior Bowl. He's a nice little twitchy receiver. He also, the way I wrote it, is a space finder. He knows how to find space, find the holes, sit himself down in zones. He's going to be tough once the ball's in his hands because he's just fast. He's fast. Like, he could end up being the fastest receiver in this entire thing. Maybe not, though, but I think we could be looking at a sub 4.4 easy. 40 time here with this twitchiness, this shiftiness. Some of the things that can be knocks against him is him facing some contact that he's going to get on routes because of his size. Also off the press, off the line of scrimmage. We know feet-wise he can get off because he's very twitchy, but he's a guy that can get a lot of separation. And I think a great comparison here would be a guy like Khalif Raymond, right? Khalif Raymond's not the biggest guy, but he also could work at the X receiver position for us. Like, you would think size-wise, oh, that's a slot. slot. But he was able to work on the outside and get space. Now, again, I don't love the size there for a guy like Goff. I think bigger receivers make more sense for him. He's done work, and he's been successful on the outside. He's proven guys wrong. So now he's got a chance to go prove that wrong in the Senior Bowl. He feels like he could be a replacement for Khalif Raymond. He kind of feels like that just on his build and his attributes and his ability. So if Khalif Raymond doesn't come back, he feels like he could be a replacement for that with special teams upside as well. Now, we have two players that are teammates on the Lions side of things. Both these guys coming out of SMU. First off, we have Reggie Robinson. Pretty sure that's how you say his name. A 6 foot, 200-pound receiver out of SMU last season. 51 receptions for just over 600 yards, 625, and 6 touchdowns. I didn't get to see the production I wish I would have seen out of him, but I also don't think they used him in a ton of variety of ways. He didn't really move positions that much. It wasn't like some of these other guys where it's like, well, just find a way to get him the ball. We'll run it. We'll hand it off to him. We'll throw. Like, it wasn't like that. He was kind of a one-spot player, which was usually lining up on the line of scrimmage, a lot of times on the left side, and playing the X role. He didn't motion. He didn't play slot. They just not ask him to do that because they had some other playmakers, which we'll get to on this SMU offense. But that'll be something to watch is how they utilize him in a Senior Bowl game specifically and, how much versatility he can add. But one thing that stuck out is his feet. Oh gosh, he as a route runner, specifically early in his route, especially off the release, you can see the amount of separation that he can get just with his feet. He is ridiculously shifty. His body control and balance, sticking in and out of routes to set up a defender, to get some space early in routes, to get off the release clean. I believe he's fully capable of a full route tree. And maybe that's why they just left him in that role saying, hey, you're the guy that can run all the routes. You're going to play the X receiver to allow us to run a full route tree. I think he's capable of that from what I've seen of his feet and his route running ability in a relatively short sample size of the amount that I've seen him in. So I'm excited to see him in one-on-ones. First off, I really want to see if he can go ball out. And two, how much production can he get out of a guy like this? Because maybe you can use him in a little bit more ways than we've seen. I really would like to see what he can do after the catch more often. That'd be kind of cool as well because other guys were kind of taking that role. Now, what's concerning for him is he did have an injury in 2019 and 2020, which really limited those seasons. I think he is extremely underrated. I think he's a guy that probably will come in with no attention because he doesn't have the numbers. People are not going to be talking about versatility here. They're not going to be saying, well, he's the biggest or he's the fastest or he's got the numbers or he's got this or that. But I'm telling you, circle it. Reggie Robinson, SMU, guy to watch for in one-on-ones. I have a feeling. I got a feeling we're going to be saying, did you see Reggie Robinson in one-on-ones? Did you see him? Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm excited to see it. Number 21. Let's move on. We got his teammate, Danny Gray. Danny Gray, 6'1", 180. All right, so he's a little bit slimmer, a little bit taller, though, as well. In his 10 games played, he had 49 receptions for 803 yards and 9 touchdowns. Also had 3 rushes this season for 40 yards, and he's been involved in kick returns, 9 kick returns for 180 yards. He's been more of one of those players that kind of just find a way to get him the ball. Unlike Reggie Robinson, they kind of just found a way to get him the football. Danny Gray, again, could be pushing a sub 4.4 time, possibly when he runs this 40-yard dash. Also has excellent body control. He really does. He has an ability to adjust to the ball when it's in the air to make plays on the football as a pass catcher. A lot of times they'll have him running drag routes, crossers, things over the middle of the field. The game that he went crazy in was not Georgia Tech. It was against Tulane that he went nuts. My bad. Tulane, he went crazy. And you saw from everywhere. Slot, went down the field. You saw him from the outside, inside. A lot of versatility you saw there. Definitely didn't love his blocking. It's something that stood out to me. And it's not necessarily effort. He just didn't seem very effective. There was a lot of times where he looked like he was trying to block guys with one hand, and they just got right off him. So, I don't know. I thought I would throw that out. Those teammates will be cool to watch, though. I'm pumped to see these SMU guys, to see how they do. Especially Danny Gray. I mean, really both of them. Because I think Reggie Robinson, we may came out of this saying that Reggie Robinson is a better route runner than Danny Gray, even though Gray has maybe more of the talk and maybe more of the production. But we'll see. I think it always comes down to how you utilize guys, and Gray just may be the more versatile piece. Continuing down, we have Jalen Tolbert. Some people believe this is the most talented receiver that we're going to be able to coach. Could be. This is a 6'3", 190-pound receiver out of South Alabama. So again, the first thing immediately comes to mind is competition and who he's facing. Now, Jalen Tolbert had ridiculous numbers. I mean, I think he may have actually had the best numbers of anybody on here. In 12 games, 82 receptions, over 1,474 yards and 8 touchdowns. So yeah, competition, okay, maybe not the best. Then dominate. Well, he did. Like a lot of smaller school players, this Senior Bowl is going to be very important for a guy like Jalen Tolbert, and I think for many reasons, good and bad. I mean, when you look at his film, he dominated a lot at South Alabama, and there was a couple of things that you didn't love on his film, but for the most part, he was pretty dominant. You've seen the numbers, and I'm cool with that. Like, you should dominate. If you're going to be a day 2 pick out of South Alabama, I need you to dominate the competition that you played against. So not only will we get to see him against better competition, because there was a lot of reps where he would just simply run by defenders. However, you're also going to get to see him with a better quarterback. I mean, he played with multiple quarterbacks. They did him no favors. There was missed passes, there were missed opportunities for him, and that happens to everybody. But playing with a better quarterback, I think, will be really cool to see. But also, of course, better competition, better corners, better safeties. You watch him at South Alabama, I mean, the speed just immediately is the first thing that you notice, because first off, the acceleration. For a guy 6'3", 185, you may think it's all that long stride speed. Yeah, for sure, but it's also the acceleration. I mean, the speed that he can catch a ball, get down, and turn and run. How fast he can do that, the acceleration that he has is super impressive. But then also just off the route running, off the snap, how fast he can close some of the gaps when defenses are playing off coverage, they're giving a lot of cushion. You just see how fast he can eat up those yards with no one in his face. Off the release, he's done a good job off the press because he's been able to get off the press with his feet, with his upper body. That will be something to watch for, but he's really had no problem with it. He's also shown different ways to sell double moves, to get on top of defenders, little nuances in there to get some separation deep. And then once he's on top, he's just shown that ability to stack defenders. And at that point, you really just have not been able to catch the guy once he gets on top of defenders. He had a lot of experience playing slot, about 35%. I actually looked at that as a pro because having that experience playing slot shows that you have the quickness to be able to do the things they would ask him to do to play the slot receiver position. Not only can he play on the outside and run long, but he also can get in the slot and he can show off his quickness, that short area quickness. And to have both of those things combined is extremely impressive. Yeah, he could afford to put on some more pounds if he wanted to bulk up a little bit, but the speed sticks out really big time. Now, he does have some concentration drops that you don't like to see. I wouldn't say he's not like he can't catch the ball well. It doesn't seem like technique issue. It's just he has concentration drops where they're easy. He just drops them, right? And, you start looking where you're going to go before you catch the football. He's 31, I believe statistically, 31 for 73 in contested situations. It's actually not too bad. I mean, I guess at that point, you're technically losing the 50-50 ball, but I don't know how that works out. I know he's a pretty good 50-50 ball player. There was a lot of these where he would just get on top of defenders so fast. But I do like the fit, like the type of player. I do like it within an offense like this to play a role where, yeah, we can have him cross the middle of the field and he can use his speed to field the hole of his zone, be a big target for your quarterback. But at the same time, he can also take the top off, and he has that short area quickness where he can run some underneath routes. So it'll be important to see more of a route tree because I know that he has that quickness, but you're going to get to see a route tree in the Senior Bowl. You're going to have to see him run different routes, a variety against press man coverage. That will be a very big test for him. So I think there's a lot that goes into the Senior Bowl for a guy like Jalen Tolbert and his draft stock. I think he could play the X receiver position. He's played slot. I think he could be a great Z. I mean, a guy like Tyrell Williams who filled that role, I think he could absolutely fill that kind of role. So this guy's going to be, he might be the player to watch, honestly, out of every receiver. There's cool storylines, a lot of guys. This may be the guy to watch because it could affect his stock, I think, so much. Guys would grab him. Like, even teams like Tennessee, they're hanging on to this dude coming in and out of breaks. For a guy that's 6'3", they're holding all over him. Doesn't scare me with the ball is in his hands. So, again, that's something that's like, dang, I wish he was a little more scary with the ball in his hands. He does have good speed. I mean, if he's taking off a run, it's hard to catch him. But it's not like he's making guys miss, running through tackles all the time. It just does not bring that factor, and that's what really sticks out about the North Dakota State kid, Christian Watson, is that he scares you at the ball in his hands, and he's 6'5". Velas Jones Jr. I'm pretty sure I'm messing it up completely. So I'm sorry if I am. I'm probably messing this up. This is a guy that went from USC to Tennessee. An effective kick returner, 23 kick returns for 628 yards. He does have the one touchdown on that. Receiving wise, this past year was the first year that he really had good production. 62 receptions, 807 yards, 7 touchdowns. A lot of his work, again, he did from the slot. He will be coming in with special teams impact as a kick returner. So if you need a kick returner, he can be our kick returner at 6 foot, 200 pounds. He's also a very physical blocker. He has a build, a strong player, especially in the lower body, and it shows up as a blocker. He finishes guys. I mean, it's not like, he's competitive. He'll block. He'll try. He's gonna knock you over. He's gonna run you over as a blocker. Like, he ain't playing. Looking for a lot from his route tree here. It seemed very slim at Tennessee. A lot of underneath, a lot of screens. Didn't seem like a very deep route tree or run deep. So I really want to see the development there and how much he can really bring to the table, especially in those one-on-ones as a route runner on the outside and the effectiveness that he can bring. Because I know he'll block. I know he's tough. So there's the fact that he's gonna be 25 years old by week 1 in the NFL. So that's a pretty old rookie. Next receiver that we have is a receiver out of Virginia Tech, Ray Turner. Now, I kind of compare this guy a little bit to a Josh Palmer. Doesn't have the numbers. Man, I'm excited to see if he can light it up. Because if he can light it up, those numbers will be completely overlooked. I don't think people will care because he has so much versatility within his game, and he's good at really, it seemed like, everything they asked him to do, and that's really impressive to be able to put a guy, not just say he could play Z or outside of the slot, but from play to play, you didn't know where he was coming out to line up. Sometimes slot, sometimes X, sometimes Z. You didn't know where he was going to be on the field every play. Sometimes in the backfield. Looks like a running back when he has the ball in his hands. Now, he does have fumble issues in the past, which I would say is one of his big struggles. And you can tell because when he runs the ball, he's really like tucking that thing. You can tell that's been a focus is, hey, don't fumble the football anymore. That's an issue. But it's that ability to line up from every different spot and look good. He looks good as a route runner. Doesn't have the elite speed, but he has good speed on the outside. And I think there was a lot of production that was left on the table for him. That was because of the quarterback play that they had at Virginia Tech. The big thing I'll be looking for him is how dominant is he, depending on the position they try to put him in, and what position can he be his best at? Is he going to come in and be a dominant slot? Is he dominant X? Is he a dominant Z? Maybe Z fits him best. I don't know, but is there something that they're going to be able to put him in and say, hey, go do this, and he's going to be able to dominate at that spot? And with better quarterback play, are they going to be able to get him more production? Because I think there was a lot that was left out there. And that wraps it up with Dontario Drummond, a receiver out of Ole Miss. Another receiver, 6 foot 215. Like our other Ole Miss receiver, you got to be able to make things happen once the ball is in your hands. It's slants, it's quick hitters, it's get the ball and go. And that's why his average was so high at 23 yards per reception. Well, for Dontario, on 76 receptions, he put over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, 5 punt returns for 56 yards as well. One of the most fun players to watch with the balls in his hands. Out of all these guys, he was one of my favorite players to watch when the ball was in his hands because he just had that knack. He had the creativity. He looked like he was playing Madden. You know, he just looked like he was brave. He'd run 5 yards backwards to go get 10 yards forward. He just had that knack as just a natural ball carrier. Get the ball in my hands and get the heck out of the way. I'm going to make something happen. He had the knack. He looked like an elusive running back with the balls in his hands. And a lot of things that he did came after the catch. Quick hitter, go. Make something happen. That's just the offense. Couple questions I will have is how he performs against the press. No question about that, how he's able to be. And again, his route tree. How deep is the route tree? I'm pumped to see him. I'm pumped to see him in the game specifically to see what he can do, if he can make some guys miss. Maybe they get guys like him or possibly a Trey Turner involved in different drills, probably here and also throughout the combine, to see really the different versatility and different positions they can put him in. Calvin Austin would also fall into that group. We have a nice variety of receivers here, from small receivers to big receivers to fast receivers. You have a nice variety here. All right, I'm excited to see really a lot of these guys for different reasons. A couple guys that I for sure will have my eye on. I'm going to have my eye on all these guys now that I know about them all. But for sure, Christian Watson will be up there just to see how he does. No question. Romeo Doubs, I want to see him as a pass catcher and just see what he looks like. Is he dropping passes? Is he playing well? Alec Pierce, for sure. Want to see how he does. Khalil Shakir is someone that really interests me just to see how he performs, you know, at this, with what they ask him to do, because he was a nice security blanket, but I want to see how far beyond that he can go. Calvin Austin, his versatility sticks out big time. Reggie Robinson, I really want to see him in one-on-ones. I'm pumped to see that. So there's a lot of guys stick out here. Lions are going to add receiver help. We'll continue to go through these guys more specifically as we go through the offseason, but hopefully that's a nice little overview background. If you guys enjoyed this, let me know, and we can do this for other positions heading into this year's Senior Bowl for D-line, O-line. Let me know what position the group to do next, but I can tell you I've seen every one of these players play, some more than others. Some more than others for sure. I've seen Jalen Tolbert more than I've seen Bamba Melton. He's probably the guy that I've actually seen the least amount of, a guy out of Rutgers. But even down to him, guys got a chance to be the 8th receiver drafted in your program. Not a lot of people even have this guy, know who he really is. So this is an opportunity for him to say, hey, hello, here's who I am. And I think the Lions side has a lot of sleepers that I'm just like, what are they going to be at the next level? That's why I'm excited for their side. And I think the Jets side, they got some guys that you kind of maybe know what they have, but now it's like, okay, put it to the test. Let's put it to the test. So, anyways, let me know your thoughts, comments below. Who are you watching for at the receiver position this year's Senior Bowl? Who do you think will ball? Thank you, Pride, for watching, and I'm out.